Welcome back to another episode of Us Anxious Folk. I am here with Sarah, who is a fellow writer from Melbourne. I get very excited when we have a writer on the podcast. Sarah is also a mother and a self-confessed book nerd. So you're exactly my kind of person.
Yep, same.
Yeah. So welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm very interested to hear your anxiety story because even though we've been following each other on Instagram for quite a while now, I think years, I don't know much about it. So tell me your anxiety story.
Okay, well, I'll try and give you the condensed version, otherwise we'll be here all day. But for me, I guess anxiety's kind of always been part of my life, even going right back to early childhood. You know, I was always that, I guess some might call it a sensitive child. You know, I was a worrier and overthinker about, everything. That's just kind of me. When I was in early primary school, I think maybe grade 1 or something, my dad had a severe car accident and was hospitalized for quite a while. And following that, I was diagnosed with PTSD related to that. And that really manifested for me as anxiety, and in particular nighttime anxiety. So, I was the kid that was having nightmares and didn't want to sleep on my own, and separation anxiety from my parents and all that type of thing. So it was sort of always there for me in childhood.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to kind of year 12, I remember having a bit of time off in year 12 because I was sick, and the doctors not really being able to pinpoint, kind of going, I think it's just a bit of a stomach virus. But looking back, I can say it was anxiety, just didn't know it at that time. It probably wasn't until about maybe a year or 18 months after finishing high school that I started to have what I remember being my first kind of panic attacks. And I remember having one at work, and at some point going to the doctors and being sent to hospital and them kind of saying, you're having panic attacks.
Wow.
But at that point, it was really, I was referred to a psychiatrist, but it was very much, here's some medication and off you go. So around that time, I was sort of diagnosed with depression as well. So depression and anxiety has always been really strongly linked for me. And I don't know, it's a bit of a chicken egg situation. I'm not really sure what came first. It was all kind of mixed up in there in that couple of years following high school that I ended up on medication for depression, and also, here have Xanax to manage your panic attacks, which I know now is, was never really going to help long term.
Yeah.
So I guess really between then and now, I'm nearly 40. So, we're talking 20 years. It's kind of been a real up and down journey for me with my anxieties. So there was times at the start there that I did get so bad that I was agoraphobic. I struggled to leave the house or go to the shops or anything like that. And then there's been other times that, I've been great. For me, my general anxiety, I manage that really well now. I'm able to see when that's kind of bubbling, and I know what I need to do to manage that. It's really, for me, become more of a panic disorder. So I have really specific triggers for my panic attacks, and that's kind of the main issue because, that's something I'm still kind of working with. Like I said, it hasn't been a linear thing. It's been very much, a learning process for me. I've done a lot of learning in terms of, seeing different psychologists and counsellors, but also reading and podcasts, and just, I think I'm at a really good place where I understand my anxiety and my body and my mind, but it's just doing the scary things. So kind of pre-COVID, I would say I was in a pretty great place. I remember when COVID literally just kicked off, we'd taken a trip to Sydney. That was when the Ruby Princess docked. It was that weekend where they all came in.
Yes.
And I remember thinking, this is the first trip I've taken interstate, in quite a while, where I didn't need any kind of medication to go on the plane. I wasn't feeling anxious. I felt great. And I was like, I'm kind of at the point where, we could do an overseas trip, which had been a big goal for me.
Yeah. And then COVID.
I did that, and then COVID, and because the big thing for me with panic disorder has always been the way through it is exposure. I know for me that's the only way I kind of am able to break through those triggers for me. And yeah, for 2 years we haven't really been able to go anywhere or do anything, so it's a bit frustrating because sometimes I feel like I've gone a bit backwards. I think the first time I went to see my friend when we were out of lockdown, she's about half an hour drive away, and straight away, as soon as I got in the car, the panic attack started, and you kind of go, oh, I was at a good place. You sort of feel like you're starting again. But I know that that's kind of just part of the process, and that I do just need to be a bit patient, and it's normal. I think, there's a lot of people that even if you haven't had anxiety before, experiencing it now because of what we've been through.
Yeah.
So, so just continuing to do the stuff that I know I need to do to kind of manage the panic and anxiety. But yeah, I guess in a nutshell, that's kind of my story. Yeah.
So you mentioned specific panic triggers. What are those triggers for you?
Yeah. So it kind of boils down to situations where I feel like I don't have a quick and easy escape. So, for example, driving long distances, I'm kind of okay if I'm with sort of my husband or a friend or something, but if I'm on my own, I always get this thought like I'm going to break down in the middle of nowhere and I'm going to be stuck there. Long flights and that type of thing where I just feel like I can't get out into fresh air and
where are you going to go?
Retreat to home if I need to. Yeah, exactly right. Kind of being long distances from home, because I guess home's always been my safe place. So that's the agoraphobia stuff coming in.
Yeah.
And also medical environments has always been a big one for me. So I've come to realize that goes right back to my PTSD from when my dad was in hospital when I was young. So, literally walking into a hospital or a doctor or even thinking about that is enough for me to just have an instant panic attack. So medical stuff has always been a kind of big one for me. Yeah.
And
but
how
probably now it's just more the travel sort of stuff as well.
Travel's like I find it always difficult when it comes to panic disorder, because there is that, like, when you panic you want to be able to control your environment, and with travel it's just you can't. So
it's very much the unknown and the unfamiliar for me. Like, I know a lot of my anxiety comes back to that need to want to control things. So, if I'm going to a new place with new people, I'm a big planner. I'm a big control freak. I want to know exactly what's going to happen and where we're going and how long it's going to take and all that sort of stuff. So,
so no surprises for you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, with the PTSD, I know you were saying that was like when you were a lot younger that you were diagnosed. What was kind of the approach with that in terms of open discussion about it? Like, was it something that you could openly discuss, or?
Yeah, it was probably not something that I even really knew about until I think it was a couple of years ago when, I was having a bit of a rough time with my anxiety again, and I was seeing a psychologist, and, of course, all the childhood stuff comes back, and we were sort of talking through a few things, and it wasn't until then I'd sort of made the link, around my dad and everything, and I'd spoken to my mum. I said, I remember, being a kid, and I remember the nightmares, not wanting to sleep alone or anything. But yeah, it was only a couple of years ago that mum went, and I said, my psychologist has said she thinks that's PTSD. And my mum said, yeah, that's what you were diagnosed with when you were a kid. And I didn't really know that. I remember them taking me to see someone to talk about it. Like, I only remember maybe going once. And I remember, my parents trying to support me through bedtime anxiety. I remember getting bunks in my sister's bed to sleep at night and all that sort of stuff. But I don't remember those labels around PTSD and anxiety. It was more like, you're worried, you're frightened, that sort of stuff. So it's only been probably in the past couple of years that I've really come to understand the big part that PTSD has played in my anxiety, and, the things like the medical stuff that I was always like, I don't really know why I'm like this. I'm so nervous around all this sort of stuff. And that was triggered again later on, about I think 10 years ago now, I had major back surgery, and it was a really big recovery, and a lot of stuff went on with that. So that was kind of triggered again by that. But yeah, it didn't really it's only recently that I've had that understanding of how it's all linked.
Yeah.
And that's what I was experiencing when I was a kid. It wasn't just that I was a frightened kid. I was, going through like a trauma, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that would it kind of makes everything else seem like it made sense, and it, whereas coming from a place of not knowing what's going on and just feeling maybe I don't know if you felt different to other people. I know I certainly did when I was younger.
I do remember I remember as a kid, like I was always that worrier, like I was worried about everything and frightened about everything. And with, even as a teenager, when your friends are doing certain, risky things, and you're not doing that because you're worried and anxious. So but just didn't have that understanding back then, just thought, I'm just really sensitive, I'm just a worrier. That's just me, I overthink everything. But not understanding it's actually, beyond that, it's a condition and it can be managed. And, yes, it's part of my personality too. I am an overthinker and all that sort of stuff. But, there's other underlying reasons and factors going on there, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm curious, whenever I speak to a parent, how they've, found anxiety to manifest in their parenting. Yeah, I mean, because parenting is such an unknown, isn't it? Like, you have no idea what you're doing.
It's got its own set of challenges, because I try to be very open about my anxiety, but I'm also really like, I don't want to put my own anxieties onto my child. I don't, and our son has experienced anxiety in his own way, and sometimes you're just like, I don't want him to have to go through that. But at the same time, I have a greater understanding of what he's going through, and we're really able to help support him and get through that stuff and manage it. But it is hard, like trying to find that fine line between being open and saying to him, like, it's okay to be scared, it's okay to be anxious, but also not wanting him to worry if I am feeling anxious. But we just talk to him on his level and his understanding. There's been times where he's been in the car with me and I'm having a panic attack, and I've found that hard because I find it better if I don't have him with me, because I can just focus on me and do what I need to do. But when I have him with me, I know that he'll be like, what's wrong, and then he starts to panic. That type of thing. So, but we've spoken about that. I've spoken to him about, because I know that he has had panic attacks himself, and I've spoken to him about that. We talk about it like it's a wave. That it kind of, I always say to him, remember that wave that comes over you, because his panic attacks, he's got the bedtime anxiety as well. So sometimes at night he'll say, I feel sick, I feel like I'm going to be sick. And then it's sort of, we do our deep breathing and it passes. And that's what I always say to him, sometimes that wave just comes and you feel it building, but just do your breath and then it goes away, So yes, parenting is a big challenge when you have anxiety, and then also when you have a child that has anxiety and navigating all that stuff. But we're pretty open about it and just talking to him about it on his level.
I think that's such a great way to talk to kids about it. I mean, it's even a great way to talk to ourselves about it with the wave. But I've never put it that way to my daughter, and I'm just thinking how helpful that would be because she's the same. And I worry about, like, yes, I'm being really open and I'm creating a safe space for us to talk about feelings, but am I also just hammering her with feelings all the time,
Exactly,
trying to find that balance. I
know, particularly, being a boy, sometimes you try and get him to talk. It's like, oh, mum, like, he doesn't want to talk about it.
Yes.
But, I just say to him sometimes, like, I just want to talk about it because, I just want you to know that I understand, I felt the same as a kid. And I think that sometimes really happens. Like, oh, did you, mum? And you felt the same. And it's like, and we always talk about the fact that, bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the thing anyway. So it's okay to be scared. It doesn't mean not being scared. It's that, okay, I'm a bit scared, but I'm going to do the thing. What can I do to help me do the thing? And we're not ever going to put you in a position where you're doing something that is going to hurt you or that you're not safe. You're always safe. It's just, learning that stuff. But it's hard, it's hard as an adult to understand it, let alone as a child.
Yes.
But yeah.
So
it's just that openness.
Yeah, exactly. Just and just making sure it's always a conversation rather than something that they have to go through alone and feel like is something strange and shameful and weird. Yeah,
exactly.
So in your own life, I love that bravery is, not the absence of fear, but the inclusion of fear. And so I imagine that's been a big thing for you as well, teaching yourself that. And so I know with agoraphobia, for me, exposure therapy was terrifying. What kind of things did you do to sort of to get you through it? Like, how did you approach your fears knowing that you had to approach them to get to the bravery?
Exactly right. You've got to do the hard stuff to get to the other side. And there's some days that it is too hard and you just make up avoidance and excuses, but I really try not to do that now. So I have certain strategies, I guess, in place. Something I used to do I remember when I was really struggling with going on like airplanes and traveling, I would actually write myself a letter when I was feeling good about all the reasons why I wanted to do this and, why I was safe. Remember this, remember that when that sort of negative self-talk and the panic set in and I was on the plane, I would pull out the letter and read it. And it was my voice speaking back to me. It was just, I couldn't find that voice in that moment when you're panicking. All you can hear is, I can't, you need to run. This is too much. This is too scary. But having words in front of me that I had written to myself when I wasn't feeling that way. But now it's, it's the breathing stuff. Breathing is huge for me. So especially with panic attacks, I know that like if that hits, it's because I'm not breathing properly. So focusing on my breathing, but it's kind of it's a fine line to balance around focusing on how you're feeling and breathing, but also a bit of distraction as well. So
yes, because there's that over focus.
Exactly right. So example, driving to my best friend's place, we it's been an ongoing thing. She's about 40 minutes away now, and she knows like I panic every time, and pre-COVID I'd gotten to the point where I was great, and it's kind of gone back now. But I think sometimes for me it's actually just saying it and sharing that with other people that kind of takes the power away. So I'll literally say to my friend or to my husband, like, I'm feeling anxious, or I feel this is what I'm thinking, like this is what I'm worrying about, or I am having a panic attack right now. Like I'll ring them on the phone, I'm panicking, just talk to me. Like it's just that distraction of talking, and sometimes just saying it out loud. I'm having a panic attack right now is enough for it to go away. But exposure for me, it's the baby steps. So it's it's not jumping in a car and going for a 4-hour drive to start with. It's jumping in a car and going for a 10-minute drive until I'm good with that, and then it's 20 minutes, and then it's 30 minutes, all that sort of stuff. And I know I still have my safety behaviors, like I have to carry a bottle of water with me wherever I go, and my phone and all that sort of stuff. But I kind of go, that's okay if that's what I need at this point. I'll get to a point where that stuff can go as well. So just kind of supporting myself as best I can. But even leading up to those exposures, I think it's about making sure that you're in a good, strong place to kind of do those anyway. So it's things like, making sure that I'm getting enough sleep, which I'm terrible at. I'm a big insomnia, but,
especially if you're reading books all night.
If you're feeling tired, or you're not eating right, or, you're spending too much time on social media or watching bad news, you're just not in a great headspace to start with to be able to face those situations where panic attacks are going to hit. So it's just about setting yourself up right to start with, and being in a good place, good, strong place to start with when you're doing those exposures, so that, yeah, when panic attacks do hit, you're feeling a bit stronger in learning to manage, in managing those and writing them out. But it's a lot of self-talk. It's just reminding myself, yeah, it feels awful, but, you know, it's going to pass. It usually passes pretty quickly, you know, telling myself I'm safe, you know what this is. I remember a friend saying that to me one time when I was having a panic attack, and she said to me, like, you know what this is? And I was like, yeah, it's not, I'm not dying right now. I'm not going to pass out. I'm not, you know, I know it's a panic attack and I know it's going to pass.
Yeah.
Just self-talk, which is hard sometimes in the moment.
For sure. There's so much value in everything you just said. I love the love notes. And I think as well, what you said about like just saying it takes that power away. And you're so right. Because it's funny when someone else says to me, I'm panicking right now, or I'm feeling anxious. Like I care, of course, but it's not as much of a huge thing as I know that it feels for me when I'm in the same situation.
Yeah.
That sounds awful, but do you know what I mean? Like for us, it's just an enormous thing. But when you say it, it's like, oh, it's actually just a thing that's happening.
Yeah, that's all that's happening. I'm just feeling anxious. That's what it is, you know.
Exactly.
And it will pass, like it always passes.
Yeah. It's
just, you know, and for me, it's that wave. I always have that image of that wave, like, because I do with my anxiety and panic attacks, you know, you feel it building. Like it starts off as, you know, in your tummy, you're feeling a bit anxious and you're going to the toilet, or, you know, and then it kind of builds to that point where, you know, your heart's racing and everything, and then it comes back down again. Like it always comes back down again.
We're just so quick to forget that. We're so quick to forget that it is going to ease.
Yeah, because in the moment it does. It's terrifying and it feels horrible. It doesn't matter how many times you know, I've known of people that have said to me, you know, the first time I had a panic attack, I called an ambulance, or I went to the hospital, or I thought I was dying. And you're like, yeah, because it's not just like some people go, oh, I panic, I'm panicking. It's like, it's actually a really physical feeling.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I went to the emergency room and I thought I was dying. So
well, I mean, that's how I got diagnosed. I was in hospital the first time. So you know, it does feel that way, and it's hard to reconcile the fact that, you know, that's kind of you doing it, it's your mind doing it, because sometimes you don't feel like you're worrying or anxious, and sometimes panic attacks can seem to come out of the blue. I used to think that. I was like, why am I, you know? But the more I understand myself, the more I know there's always a reason. Like I'm pretty good. I found I have a bit of a, you know, pattern that I'm pretty good in a crisis. Like when stuff is going on, I'm the person that's helping out and doing stuff and organising. And then it was like maybe 3 months after or something where everything had gone back to normal, that then all of a sudden, you know, it's like now with COVID, it's like I was fine throughout COVID. You know, that was, I mean, fine as anyone could be, but I managed really well. And it's now that it's kind of, we're coming out the other side, it's like my body just goes, okay, everyone else is good now. Now I can fall apart. I've learned that about myself. So that was kind of interesting, because for a long time there I'd be like, why am I having panic attacks all of a sudden? Like everything's good. Life is good. What's going on? And then I'd kind of retrace it back and be like, oh, it was this stuff that was going on a few months ago that I had to just handle then and get through. And now that it's over and everything's good, it's my body letting go in a way.
It kind of reminds me of I think maybe Deepak Chopra, who said that it's common for panic attacks to happen at night, because that's when our conscious mind is relaxed, and so it's like the body's like, I can let this go now. And kind of it sounds like the same thing for you. You know, you're holding definitely everyone else together, and then you have this time where everyone else is okay, so it's like your body's just like, let's do it.
I know, and it doesn't feel like a conscious thing. It's not like I'm saying in my mind to myself, you know, everyone's good now, it's just like, it's almost like your body takes over. Sometimes.
For me, 90% of the time it's my body is running the show and I'm not. My mind's just over here going, what?
I know, it's a really interesting thing. You know, I was watching, I don't know if it was like Q&A or something on ABC the other night, and they were talking about anxiety and how, you know, we need to kind of start reframing it as, you know, yes, it is a mental illness, but it's very physical as well. It has really physical implications, you know. And sometimes you don't feel like you're in control of that.
Yeah, absolutely. For you, has there been I know you mentioned breathing. Are there other physical practices that you do to sort of balance you? I know a lot of people will say, you know, walking in nature and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So walking is definitely a thing. I notice when I'm not doing that, or, you know, being outside, that's, you know, so I have gotten back into that recently because I knew I wasn't doing that. I wasn't exercising, and I know exercise and movement is good for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, meditation as well is another thing. And particularly I like guided meditation, you know, I like I like using, you know, Headspace and Smiling Mind and things like that to meditate. And that again is linked back to the breathing. Too. But yeah, moving your body, I think, is a really big thing that, yes, I definitely need to get better at, because I know when I do it, it makes me feel better. For sure.
Well, I think so much of anxiety is a lack of movement. It's like we really want to be able to do something to fix it, but it's like we're so scared that we just contract and we stop moving, you know, even stop breathing. So I guess the antidote to that,
literally.
it would make sense that it's sort of unfurling and but I also would imagine that you are somebody who uses creativity as a way to do exactly that. I mean, obviously writing yourself letters is one of your practices. Talk me through the rest of your creative process.
So writing's always been, you know, a really big part of my life. And it's funny, I look back now and think, oh, wow, I don't know how I didn't even think to take that path, you know, professionally, because in school it was like English was my favorite subject and I love writing stories, and I was the, you know, friend that would write my friends like 5-page letters and things like that. So I've always loved writing. And, you know, I journal every day. So, you know, do a bit of I find that really helps with my insomnia as well. Of a night, I try and do a bit of a mind dump of just everything. So just writing stuff out on pages. When I became a mum, I had a blog, and that was a real outlet for me back when, you know, blogs were really big back in the day. Every mum had them. And that was my way of, you know, processing and sharing, like, you know, I would write and put that out into the world. And I've always found writing to be a way to connect with other people a lot as well. You know, I always find when I write or share something about my anxiety, the amount of messages and things that you get saying like, me too, or, you know, if not me too, my friend, my sister, my child, whatever is going through this, and thank you because you've helped me understand it a bit more. So writing for me, is definitely a way to process things, but it's also just a creative outlet for me. So I'm at the moment attempting to write a fiction novel that's, you know, been in the works, and one day I'll get it done when I'm 80 or something, but got the first draft done and working through that. And, you know, I've always felt like that I would like to write a book or something about anxiety. I'm just not sure what that looks like at this point, because I feel like, you know, there's a lot of books out there about anxiety, and
there's a lot.
And you just want to, and I'm so excited about your book because I think that will be, you know, I really relate to your story. But I just want to make sure, I guess, if I do something in that space, that it adds something different and something worthwhile and a different point of view. Because for me, writing, not even writing words, but reading words has been a really big help to me. You know, there's been some books that I've read along the way, or blogs or different things that I've read that have just made such a difference to me. So
do you have particular favorites in terms of like the anxiety space?
So there's an old book, and I can't even think it's a doctor, I don't even know her name, I feel like it's Dr. Bronwyn someone, but it's a little like really thin book called Power Over Panic. And it was a book I picked up years ago, and it's one that I often go back to. It very much focuses on the panic attacks, but also other people's stories, like Claire Bowditch's book. I don't know if you've read
I haven't
that.
read that, but I think it was on
Oh,
your
you need to.
Instagram that you were like,
Yeah.
this is so good.
Yeah, you definitely need to read that. I think that you will find a lot of similarities in there.
Yeah.
That, you know, and just things like that you read and you just go, I'm not the only one.
Yes.
And not only that, but, you know, there's so many successful people that have anxiety. You know, you can still do all the things that you want to do in life and have it. So yeah, I'm always words, writing them, reading them. That's kind of how I process my feelings, but also, you know, get information and support.
Yeah. We're very, very similar.
Yeah. And words too, like I'm a talker and a writer. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm very, you know, open in that sense, I guess.
Yeah. I was perusing your website before and you mentioned something about grammar rules being made to be broken, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, I'm a bit like that with writing my novels and things like that. I'm like, I know there's all these rules, but I just write to write. Do you know what I mean? I'm not and I kind of went down the path of, you know, doing writing professionally. Like I was doing a lot of copywriting and social media, and, you know, I loved that, but I do find sometimes they become, once you're sort of getting paid for something, there becomes that pressure of, you know, getting it right, and it becomes work. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I dabble in a bit of writing in my work life, but it's very much a creative outlet for me and something for me, as opposed to, you know, something I want to do professionally or get paid for.
Yeah, I think that's one of the really beautiful things about this day and age, which social media plays a huge part, annoyingly, because I hate social media for a lot of reasons, but it's so good in that, like, the books we read are changing. Like there's not this format that there once was, and I think people are being a lot more creative in professional spaces, which is amazing. Like there didn't used to be that, you know, you wouldn't be able to find a book where it's like got poems on one page and then pictures on another in sort of the mainstream, you know? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. People are just, and I think, you know, particularly in the mental health space too, there is just much more openness now. A lot more people sharing their stories than what there ever was, which, you know, is only a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then, like you said, there's that feeling of I'm not alone. It's not just me. Like I'm not a freak. I'm not a weirdo.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's just that stigma too. Like sometimes I think, oh gosh, I'm really open about my anxiety, and I think a big part of that is because, you know, there's been people I've worked with over the years that I've told them about it, and they're kind of like, you have anxiety, because, you know, in my professional life and, you know, with my family, like I come across as super confident. And that's, you know, part of the thing that I want people to understand too, and that's why I do share my story so much, and I'm so open about it, because people experiencing anxiety that isn't the shy person rocking in the corner, you know, chewing their nails, and, you know, they don't want to get up and speak in front of a crowd. Like it can be like that for some people, but for a lot of people, you know, they're the confident people at work. They're the perfectionists. They're the, you know, the ones that seem to be kicking goals but are really struggling. So just having, helping to reduce that stigma, and for people to understand that it's not a weakness at all. If anything, you know, people have always said that people that are experiencing anxiety are stronger than others, because, you know, we're still doing things and living our lives with this terrifying thing going on inside of our bodies, and a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that.
And having to put up with it on something as simple as a car ride to a friend's place, or you know, a lot of like constant bravery, like you said, a lot of constantly doing the scary shit.
Exactly right. And it's not if you're doing something on a daily basis that doesn't bother you, then, you know, that's not bravery. Like I often say, you know, if you're jumping out of a plane and you love jumping out of a plane, then, you know,
that's fun.
That's fun. You're not brave. But if you're jumping out of a plane and you're shit scared, like that's brave.
I had a guest recently who had skydived, and it blew my mind. I'm like, I just can't. I can't cope with that. But maybe one day, who knows?
Yeah. But I'm like, it's not that I'm just scared of skydiving. That doesn't interest me, and that's okay. Like it's not something that I particularly want to do, and that's okay too. But yeah, it's funny. Anxiety manifests so differently for everyone. There's things that I'm sure I do that other people with anxiety are like, oh, I couldn't do that, or and vice versa. It just manifests in different ways, and there's different triggers for everyone. So
for sure. So what's on your goal list in terms of, I guess, facing your fears? I know you said an overseas trip was a big one. What else have you got planned?
It's probably just building myself back up now after COVID. Like I said, I do feel like in some spaces I've kind of gone backwards, which I have to keep telling myself I haven't. That's okay. I know I'll get back to where I was quicker. So it's just doing those little things like getting back to driving places without being okay with that. Things like being able to go to the doctors by myself. Like I was doing that pre-COVID, and now I'm like, I don't know if I could do that at this point. So in a lot of ways it's goals that I'd already achieved that I've got to go back and kick those goals again, but that's okay. That's okay. So and look, Lord knows when I think even if I could travel overseas at the moment, I wouldn't anyway. I don't think
that's true.
So I've got a bit of time up my sleeve to kind of do that, but I think it's going back to a lot of basics for me at the moment, and getting back into that routine. Like at the moment I'm still working from home, so we'll be heading back into the office, which I'm not anxious about that. I'm looking forward to that. For me, I've kind of surprised myself, I guess, how well I have coped with being home, because that spending a lot of time home alone by myself is a big trigger for depression for me as well, and anxiety. So I've had to just be really mindful of that, and I know that getting back out into the world is only going to be good for me. So it's just kind of building myself back up, I guess, to the place that I was before, and then continuing beyond that. So traveling and doing those things on my own more.
Just getting back into that normal routine, I guess. And with if you don't mind my asking, with depression, what do you find is the most helpful thing for you? Because obviously when the two come together, it's really difficult.
Again, it's the talking stuff, talking to other people, and I just have to get out there. Like I said, spending a lot of time at home by myself, moping around, it's not good. I need to get out and have things to look forward to. So whether that is a trip or a holiday or catching up with friends, I need to make sure I'm interacting with other people and getting out there. That's a big thing for me with depression, because I tend to just go inward and want to stay at home and not want to see anyone or go anywhere. So it's kind of hard, because it's the thing that you don't want to do that you have to do to make yourself better. But I'm really lucky in that I have an extremely supportive husband and family and friends that have always helped me through that sort of stuff. Have always both with depression and anxiety, super understanding, and I'm able to be really open and honest with them, and they're able to support me in that stuff. My husband's able to say, like, let's get out this weekend, or let's do this, or but I would say, my depression's probably been really steady for a long, long time. I still take medication for depression. I have tried a couple of times to come off that, and every time I have, it's been a big disaster. I find within 3 months I'm just boom, straight back down again.
Hear that?
So I know you had a similar experience. So I've just kind of learned, like, that's okay. Like, if I have to take a tablet every day, like, so be it. Maybe one day I'll get to a place where I can come off them, but it's not necessarily a goal. I don't want to set that as a goal for myself, because I don't want to feel like a failure if that doesn't happen, because it's okay if it doesn't happen. If you were a diabetic, you would take insulin every day, and for me, I think the depression does have a lot to do, like there's different triggers for depression, you know, sometimes it's situational for people, and they get through those situations and they come better. I think, you know, for me, it probably is more to do with a chemical imbalance, and that medication does help to balance that out. So it is what it is, you know, that's okay.
I think it's I know it's a overused cliche, but I feel like when you have that sort of creative mind, there's a natural sort of penchant for depression in a way, because you think very deeply.
Oh God,
you feel very deeply.
Oh yeah. I laugh at myself because I'm like, I was that teenager in the bedroom playing the sad songs and
me too,
reading the lyrics,
and feeling it
writing
so much.
out the lyrics. Yes. You know, big feeler. So you kind of go, that's me, that's part of my personality, it's probably part of my genetics as well, you know. There's a history there in our family. So if I have to take medication to control that, that's okay. But it doesn't mean that I think the important thing about taking medication is that you understand it's not just pop a pill and it's done, it's doing all the other stuff as well. So it's understanding it's not a cure, or it's just one tool to help manage it. And then, you know, you still do the other stuff, you know, exercising and trying to get good sleep and eating healthy and all the stuff that I've been really terrible at for the past 2 years. But, you know, I know that it's just doing it.
And we have to cut ourselves some slack, honestly. Like it's a global pandemic. It's just crazy when you think about it. So I think we're like, you know, we got set back and this and that, but it's like, honestly, we all went through something pretty horrendous. So
you kind of sit here going, why am I so exhausted? And then you're like, that's why.
That happened.
And it's still happening, like it's still going on, it's still a bit of a shitstorm. And and I think now it's almost like there's more fear because we kind of have seen the things that we thought couldn't happen can happen. You know,
everything seems
run out of food at the supermarkets, and people can turn on each other and all that sort of stuff. So but sometimes I think I heard someone else say on your podcast, I can't remember who it was, about, you know, probably the people with anxiety were the best prepared for the pandemic, because, you know, we've been living in that world for a long time in our head, anxious and worried about everything. So we've got this, we've got all the tools to.
That's it. We're like the doomsday preppers. We were ready.
Exactly right.
And thankfully it's definitely opened the door for everybody to be more transparent with their mental health and more proactive. You know, companies are being more proactive, and even on the TV there's ads about it. Like it's such a common thing now for people to be talking about, which is great.
Exactly right. I mean, that's the thing, you know, the past years has been really crappy, but there's always silver linings and good things to come out of it. And I think definitely that talk about mental health, you know, although it's really crappy, because I think a lot of people are reaching out for help now, and it's hard to get at the moment. Exactly right. So it's kind of, you know, but it's a good thing that people are talking about it. There's lots of good things to come out of COVID, even, you know, the flexible work and, you know, understanding that people have lives and commitments, and how can we do all that sort of stuff better, which, you know, better work-life balance, that helps with mental health as well. So
and are we really doing what we want to be doing, or are we just, you know, waiting out for someday when really we should be doing it today?
100%. Live for the moment. If that's the only thing that we've all learned, it's that, you know, your health, your friends and your family are the most important things, because when that stuff was taken away from us or put under, you know, risk, that was all that mattered in the end.
That's it. And on that note, my favorite question to ask on the podcast, a piece of advice for someone at their worst, or yourself at your worst. What would you say to somebody going through it really tough?
I guess my biggest piece of advice goes back to what I was saying before, in that just talk. And I mean that on many levels. So I mean that, you know, if you're struggling, reach out and talk to someone, whether that's a friend, family member, professional, colleague, whatever it needs to be. Talk in be mindful of the way that you're talking to yourself, because so much of anxiety is the way the words, what we're telling ourselves, the way we're talking to ourselves, and talk back to that in a positive way. But I guess because I'm word obsessed, so that's my big piece of advice, is just talk, because like I said, the more you talk about it, the more people understand, the less stigma, it's better for everyone, and it just takes that power away when you just say it, because sometimes saying things, you kind of go, oh, that wasn't so bad, and we can work through this and we can work it out. So
absolutely,
just talk. And that doesn't mean you have to get on a podcast and talk about it, like that's too far. It doesn't mean that you have to tell everyone. It's what you feel comfortable with. But even if it's just one person that you can talk to, you'll feel so much better just getting that off your chest.
Getting that weight off your body and over there.
Exactly right.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
I feel much better now that I know your story, and I am very much looking forward to reading your book one day as well, because I definitely think we do need more different books in the anxiety space, and more understanding and more realness about it, rather than it being this like scientific, medical thing.
Yes. Exactly right. And same to you. Looking forward to reading your book.
Find Sarah. You have a website, which is sarahjbowen.com.
Do you have a website?
Yeah.
Yes, and I think socials, I'm Sarah J Bowen writer, I think I am. I spend most of my time on Instagram. I find that's the most friendly space, but I'm also on Facebook as well.
Cool. I will link those in the show notes, and I'm also going to link the book that you mentioned, if I can find it. So because
I'll see if I can find it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.